The phrase "show don't tell" is commonly considered a staple of storytelling. It's pushed as this unbreakable rule that can be traced back to even Chekhov and popularized in fiction since at least 1921. And that's almost 100 years of this rule in effect. The supposed benefit of this rule is to remove information from dialogue and instead infuse dialogue with character, whilst visual or descriptive aspects show the audience what the dialogue would have told them.
This means something, Sam.
Rules of fiction are just waiting to be broken, and I believe Steve Purcell's Sam and Max series shatters this rule with great effect to create something hysterically unique. The rule of show don't tell is most commonly used as a response to lazy writing that relies on uninteresting exposition. Sam and Max is anything but lazy. It takes exposition to a whole new level. It takes it past the point of convenience and into its own form of art, coupled with the amazing artwork, and you know that everything on the page and screen is extremely deliberate and thought out. Let me give you an example. Here's how a conversation goes in the Sam and Max universe.
Right.
No, really. Max's superego had a colossal hissy fit and turned Max into some sort of rampaging elder god. And our friend Sybil was 13 months pregnant, and Stinky and Sal were making out, and... wow, it really does sound crazy when I say it out loud. This broken gumball machine always makes me wistfully nostalgic for earlier times.
Like that time we smashed this gumball machine. That was great.
When I was a kid playing Sam and Max, it seemed like the series was endlessly huge. Like, I thought they must have had hundreds of comics that detail their adventures that they keep talking about, but because they describe them so vividly and hilariously, I never felt the need to go out and look for those comics until I got more interested. And then I found out that there wasn't really that many. The creator Steve Purcell puts it best in the introduction to the 20-year anniversary collection by stating, "I suppose you could argue that anything that has been repeatedly put in front of an audience will eventually gain loyalty. But to that, I say ha. There have only been a handful of comics, a smattering of successful games, a blip of an animated series. Certainly not enough material to build relentless traction of an endlessly renewed sitcom or syndicated comic that has existed since the Korean conflict." He seems almost bitter at absurdly long-running franchises, which also comes through in the sharp satire of the exposition in the comics. At first glance, it kind of seems like the comics are parodying these old sort of pulpy serialized works, and there's definitely some allusions to that, but those comics had to do it because there was so much exposition, and most of the people that read them will just pick up a random one, and they won't know the hundreds of issues that came before it. And Sam and Max really keeps that sort of magic. Whatever piece of Sam and Max media you jump into, even if it's the first one, it feels like there's so much more before it that you've missed out.
Last time on Sam and Max.
Those were fun times, he said wistfully.
Steve Purcell also has this fascination of fake history, which of course lends itself perfectly to this web of absurdly complicated exposition. Each entry contains a subtitle saying something like, "based on the beloved adult film" or "the obscure French novella," and it instantly throws the audience into the work thinking that there's something more to it that they haven't experienced. Like, you go into it thinking that you've missed some sort of vital key to the whole work, but in actuality that doesn't exist. I think it has a similar creative philosophy to Chantal Akerman's film Jeanne Dielman, and this is a film that treats all of its scenes with just as much attention and weight and time as the other, whether it's peeling potatoes or prostitution. And so this creates the effect of something in a film that is usually given a lot more weight and attention appearing mundane in comparison to all of the other things that is given the same amount of attention. Sam and Max similarly put so much attention on this exposition, something that is usually just people try to avoid if they're trying to make something serious. But Sam and Max put so much attention on it, and so much attention to what it refers to off screen, that it completely changes how you view the characters on screen. A common goal of many works of fiction seems to be striving for the creation of a world that seems like there's more to it than what you're seeing on the page or screen. And although there's been some very successful examples, I have never seen any that have done it quite like Sam and Max, who pack their world with so much extra life and exposition that it seems like a huge hulking franchise, and it's deceptively contained in this really quaint but extremely impressive little series. This panel pretty much sums up my entire experience with Sam and Max. Hello, thank you very much for watching. I love Sam & Max so much. Like, whenever I flick through the comic, I always see something every few pages that makes me just go like, ah! And there's this really cool page that has all these different squares on it, and it says if you cut them out and put them on, like, you know, make them into like a flip book, it does a little animation. And like, of course I'm not gonna cut this out. This book is expensive and it's like one of my prized possessions, but if I just take a picture of them, then you get this little animation, and it's so cool, so clever, such a great series. If you like this video, then please subscribe, it helps out a lot. And I'm working on a video at the moment on the Muppets, and it's gonna be a big one, so stick around for that if you're interested. Thank you.